Hello, everybody. Looks like we have a good group here. Wow, and there's more joining. Oh, I know Sean. It's good to see Sean here. And as you're joining and getting hooked up, I'm hoping that I'm really looking for this to be an interactive discussion as we talk about fleshing out our characters and hopefully when you saw in the description about bringing a character maybe you do want to do a little bit of work on, we can do that live, and so everybody can learn from the process. So welcome. My name is Paul Smith. I love doing panels here for RoberCon. I am also an author on the side. I just finished a 5-book series called the Jason and the Draconaut series. Last book just came out in March. And as much as I loved writing it, I'm glad I'm done and being able to move on to new ideas. So yeah, today we're going to talk about character design and kind of fleshing out those characters that we have percolating in our minds. And what I'm going to use is what I really want to do is show you a tool that I have more recently been made aware of that I'm kind of using as I start working on my next series of books. And it actually is a tool that comes from, believe it or not, a role-playing game. So there is a role-playing game called the Fate System that has a very interesting character design element. And some of the creators of a TV series you might be familiar with, it was on, I think it was TNT, called The Librarians. Some of the creators of that series used this character creation system to flesh out the characters for that TV show. So I wanted to kind of walk you through what it is. Now, soon I'm going to put a copy of the character sheet on the screen itself, and you're going to see some gamey stuff on here, but I'm going to just kind of direct you to a certain portion of it to kind of walk through what I'm talking about and hopefully give you some tools that you can use to flesh out your own characters you might be trying to figure out where to go with. So what I'm going to talk about is the concept, or the term I'm going to be using quite often is something called aspects. And if you think of, all of us have different aspects of our personalities, who we are, what makes us who we are. You want to think of that same thing when you're creating your characters for the different stories that you're working on. So, what makes that character tick? What motivates them? What makes them who they are? And so this interesting tool for this game system has these ideas called aspects. And it's the idea that you're creating short statements or phrases that describe aspects of your character's personality. And the reason you're doing that is that then when you're writing, you have something to go back and maybe kind of reference when you're kind of stuck on what would my character do in a certain situation. So let me put this character sheet up on the screen, and I'm just going to direct you to the aspects that, or the part of it that I'm looking at. And please, I know a lot of you are muted. If you have questions or comments along the way, please feel free to just unmute and ask. I would really like this to be a discussion as we go. So I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, Natalie, it says I can't share my screen. Hopefully she hears me.
All right, you should be able to now.
Awesome, thank you. So hopefully you can all see that, yes? Okay, great. And you'll see me move my mouse. This is the part of the sheet I really want to direct you towards, where it says aspects, and you can barely read. There's about 5 blanks here. One of them says high concept, one of them says trouble, and then there's a few blanks underneath. So when I'm creating a character, and what I'm working on for my next book series as well, is first of all, looking at what we're calling a high concept aspect, meaning what is that if you could summarize who your character is or the core of them in a phrase, what would that be? That's your high concept. That's your, when it comes down to it, this is who my person is. One of the examples I've used before when I've walked people through using this system is I take the character of Peter Parker from the Spider-Man movies and thinking of what motivates Peter. Who is he down to his core? And, the many stories I've read about with Peter is he's good at heart and he wants to do the right thing and even more than wanting to do the right thing. I think way in the back of his mind since his uncle passed away at such an early age, there's that need that he wants to do his uncle proud. And in the long run, he wants everybody to be proud of what he does. But then going down to a trouble aspect is what is that one thing that always seems to get your character in trouble? Or what's that challenge for them? For Peter Parker, Peter has a very overdeveloped sense of responsibility. He can't run away from a fight. And you see that come out in the Spider-Man movies. When you read the Spider-Man comics, you see that come out all the time. His relationships in his life fall apart. He loses jobs because he can't not avoid a trouble situation. So that always gets Peter into trouble. And then, as you think of that character, there's other aspects to that character along the way, to Peter along the way. He's very sarcastic, very witty, and other things along that line. So, as we talk about character creation today, these are the tools I want to walk through as we, think about what our characters are, how we're going to flesh them out, that sort of thing. So are you all following and tracking with me right now? So let me give you an example of a character that I made for this game, but how I kind of fleshed him out when I was going to role play him. So I'm going to show you an image of this character. I actually used a character creation tool to create a picture of him. So this isn't working. Oh, that's why. Huh. There we go. So you'll see that guy right there. Hopefully you all can see him. That is a sword that he's holding. I couldn't rotate the camera quite well enough to get a good picture of him. So just curious, just from this image, if you were to start pulling aspects or components of what kind of personality you would assign to this character on, what's coming to your mind just from seeing the image? And please unmute if you want to contribute.
Country.
Country, okay. What else?
Definitely some confidence or self-assuredness.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
Irreverent,
Yeah.
courageous, athletic.
Breaking the role model.
He's what?
Breaking the role model.
Yeah. Anybody else out there? Before I kind of give you, and you guys have actually hit on large portions of who this guy is.
Has a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Mischievous.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Zeke. Zeke was going to be a character in a sci-fi time travel story, and he may well be in the future. I enjoy mashups of different genres and try to put them together into one character. So to use a colloquialism, Zeke is a bit of a redneck. So whoever said country hit it right on the head that time. But Zeke, through a very odd set of circumstances, found himself trained in the skills of being a ninja. So you can see that's where the sword is coming from. So if you can think of a redneck who received training as a assassin, but then came back to his roots and is kind of a hero at this point in time. That's who he is. He is, I mean him to be a character with a good sense of humor. He does get into mischief, kind of an easygoing character at the same time. But despite his easygoingness, his kind of fun heart, he does have that assassin's training that's been jammed into his head. So he's kind of always fighting that. So let me show you how I fleshed him out using this character sheet. So you can see right here, his name is Zeke, Ezekiel O'Malley. He was trained as a ninja. Return to rural America was his high concept. If I was to boil down as to who this character is, that's what came to my mind. However, his trouble aspect is he is always fighting that assassin inside. So even though he's kind of a lighthearted, fun-loving guy, he has that aspect of him that he's always trying to suppress. I also said that he's charmingly naive. He's kind of got that aw shucks aspect of his personality that makes him kind of charming. And then I had a little bit of fun with the fact that he has a mullet, and I gave him an aspect of business in the front and party in the back, meaning that there's times when Zeke has to be serious and get the job done, but then there's a lot of other times when he just wants to have fun, and it's kind of a trickster or mischievous at heart as well. So when I have those aspects in my mind, when I hopefully will start writing Zeke as actual character in a story, these are the things, the foundation that I'm going to go through as I put him in different situations and how he would respond. So what I'm hoping we can do today is to take some character ideas that you have or that you're trying to work through and maybe walk them through this process, and hopefully some things will crystallize in your head that will make it easier for you to write this character going forward. So with that in mind, I kind of want to first open up to any questions, and then we will kind of move into our workshop portion. So please, any questions or comments before we move on?
So do you have like a repository of characters that are just waiting for stories?
I do actually. I have who was that just asked? I'm sorry.
DL.
Okay, DL, hi DL. I actually do. I have, well, for this next story I'm working on, I want to say I have a good 8 to 10 potential, I don't want to call them main characters because there's only 1 or 2, main characters or primary characters, but yeah, I do. I have a little bit of a repository of ideas that have come up and I jot them down. Usually I use a spreadsheet because, I'm just geeky like that. But yeah, I do. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So who's got a character they're working on, and tell us about them? Who's going to go first?
All right, I'll do it.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good to see you again.
I'm back. A bit of a different format this year.
That's all right.
All right. I'm gonna dive into the well a little bit here because I have a side character that I kind of developed on a whim with the intention of just having him be like some sort of ancillary character. And he's
Okay.
It's not me, is it? No. And he is really becoming more interesting than the main character, which is kind of scary.
Do I hear music?
Yes.
Sorry, that might be just a second. Did it go away?
Yes, it did.
Okay, sorry, my son was watching Moana.
That's great. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
You're fine. All right. So this side character is starting to become more interesting than the main character, which I kind of want to nip in the butt now because I might actually decide to limit his role in the story a little bit more and give him his own because it's kind of spiraling out of control.
Wow.
All right. So his name's Dorian. He's a drunkard and he is a bard, and he kind of doesn't really have very many social graces.
Okay.
So the backstory for him is that he was essentially a very well-renowned bard, and people like they may not know his face, but they knew who he was. He falls in love with a goddess, basically the goddess of like music and arts and stuff like that. And she actually invites him to become a god himself because she's impressed with what he does. Ultimately, what he has to go through, though, requires basically a challenge that he kind of walks through. And by the end of it, what happens to him is that he either has to continue on this path or he's going to die. He abandons the quest to go be with his sister, who dies anyway, but basically he gave everything up, and as a result, he's kind of trying to pick himself back up after everything that's kind of fallen apart on him. So he was really cocksure, like he was 100% knew he was one of the best ever. And now he's not really, like, he can't really back it up anymore. So he's starting all over to kind of go on this journey and figure out if he still got it. But ultimately, his goal is to try and rekindle that relationship with the goddess.
So I'm jotting down your ideas. Oh, what just happened? Okay, that's fine.
It's just I saw the text coming.
Okay. So if you were to think then, Sean, so if you were to try to boil down who Dorian is in, who he is at his core in, a phrase or a sentence or two, what would that be?
Phrase or sentence? Let me think here.
Sentence or two. Doesn't have to be just one, but you want to kind of keep it short. I hate to use the word quippy, but almost a little bit like that because I think sometimes when we're describing our characters, we keep going and going and going, and then if that translates to the readers, we're almost throwing too much at them at once. So that's why I'm trying to get you to boil it down to like a core concept.
Okay. Amazingly talented, amazingly arrogant.
Okay. What is it that gets, if something was to get Dorian in trouble, or what is that thing he always stumbles over? What is that trouble that he runs into that kind of comes from within him?
He doesn't know when to stop. He doesn't know when he's in over his head. I think that's kind of.
Oh, okay.
He's an excellent. I mean, because he's like vocally talented. A lot of the things that he does is sometimes he'll just lie for the sake of lying, and it gets him in trouble. And he doesn't know that there's times where it's better to just shut up instead of try and like sing his way out of something.
So he doesn't know when to shut up. Is that what you said?
Yeah, pretty much. That's definitely another aspect of him.
Now, you said mildly talented. What did you mean by that? Or did I hear that wrong?
I don't know if I said mildly talented.
You said a word, maybe I heard it wrong. Did you say wildly talented?
I'm trying to think what I said now.
Okay.
If somebody else heard me say it, please correct me. But no, he is. I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this. He is
Chelsea, are you talking because you're on mute?
Sorry. You had already written amazingly talented, amazingly arrogant. I don't know if there was another time you were talking about talented
Oh, okay. All right.
that you're referring to, but earlier it was amazingly. I don't know.
Okay.
so he's got all the talent in the world, but he kind of everything he does for a good purpose, but he doesn't always go about doing it in the right, honest way. He'll
So,
take shortcuts if he can, and sometimes you're just not supposed to take shortcuts.
so are you saying like he does always want to do the right thing?
He is ultimately, like, deep down, he is a good person,
Okay.
but he does lie, cheat, and steal. But he tries to make sure that the people he's doing that from are people who deserve to be lied to or stolen from. You know what I mean? Think more like Robin Hood. He's never out to screw anybody that doesn't deserve it. You know what I mean?
Okay. So, I mean, that's an important aspect to his character, it sounds like. So, again, if we're thinking about aspects, how would you summarize? So, I did say, I think an important one that you said that also could make some very interesting character moments says he doesn't know when to shut up.
Yes.
So I put that as another aspect for him. But you're talking about that kind of Robin Hood-esque aspect to him. How would you summarize that? Because it sounds like that's important for who he is. At least at this stage in the story, it sounds important.
Right. He's willing to get his hands a little dirty. If I'm trying to summarize this a little bit better. Let's see here.
And as you're thinking about that, I hope the rest of you are seeing, I think, why it's so important to try to summarize this, because I think for us as writers, it helps us kind of solidify our characters more in our head when we go through steps like this, you know?
Willing to take shortcuts.
Okay. Awesome.
And then I would probably just sum it up by saying trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to think again how to properly do this. Good intentions, bad execution.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. Awesome.
That should work.
That does work.
That's honestly a pretty good summary there.
You want to take a screenshot of that?
Yep. Hold on.
So, yeah, I think when I read that, not only does it give me a good idea of this character that you're creating, but I'm hoping that for you, now as you start writing and as you get to a point where what would Dorian do, you can go back to this and you can say, okay, well, I have these basic aspects of who he is, and that will hopefully guide me as to what decision he would make in this story. And the cool thing about using a tool like this too, because your characters are going to grow and they're going to develop, and it could be something pretty serious happens to Dorian somewhere in the story where eventually he actually learns that sometimes he does have to shut up, and then that aspect might change, which is awesome because that means your character is growing and developing. And so if you choose to use a tool like this, I really encourage you to remember that this is fluid as well, that as your character is growing, these aspects are going to change because who they are hopefully will change in their journey through the story.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That
So
was
yeah,
awesome.
who else wants to do this? You took a screenshot of that, right, Sean?
Yeah, we're good to
Go.
go.
Erase it. Okay. Who else wants to work out a character like this?
I can give it a go if nobody else wants to.
Awesome. Let me just clear these fields. How are you, Chelsea?
Oh, I'm all right. How are you?
Good. How's Moana?
I turned it off because he went upstairs.
So tell us about who you have. What's your character's name?
Her name is Valen.
Spell it for me.
Velynn.
L-Y. Okay, cool. Tell us about Valen.
I'm trying to even remember this. I don't have the notebook that I wrote like all the stuff in. I only have a couple notes here. But basically she's the stepdaughter to the king of this world. And he's evil. And he's like getting ready to basically sell her off.
Oh. Okay.
And I don't even remember. I just had a baby this past week, so my brain is just like, my brain is like not working correctly as far as memory goes. The king had murdered her father because he wanted to marry her mother, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then the premise of the story is my husband is very into dragons, and so he suggested, what about a story where someone finds a dragon, but it's a world where nobody knows what dragons are? So like, which has proved a little tricky to me because like, because not being able to use the word dragon, like, has thrown me a little bit, but yeah, so that's all. Yeah, that's who she is. What? Sorry. I was really looking forward to actually being at RoberCon physically this year. Hi, bud. Okay.
So, going back to what we worked on with Sean, so if you could summarize Valen in, one high concept, what is the core of who she is? How would you summarize?
She wants to be free.
Wow. And again, free from
her current life, her current existence, expectations.
I like existence. That's pretty deep. What is something a part of her personality that, that just always causes her to stumble, that gets her in trouble, that, is a roadblock for her? Uh-oh.
It froze.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Hi, bud. So it seems very connected to water so far, like she does.
I'm sorry, say that again?
She seems very connected to water, like the freedom which is kind of funny talking about Moana, but I wrote this before, I started this before seeing Moana, and it's been sitting on a dusty shelf, so.
So do you consider that like what her trouble aspect would be, or that?
Her trouble aspect is probably her, like shelteredness.
Okay.
Like she's been locked up, she doesn't know. So I guess her shelteredness. She doesn't really know much about the world. Like she only has one ally that she knows of. She can't trust anybody else. So.
Oh, and then she doesn't trust too.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said other aspects about her. One friend.
Yeah, she only has one. He's like he's considered by the town to be like crazy. But he kind of mentors her, and like he's like old crazy man in the village or whatever. But he like mentors her, but she can't let her stepdad know.
Okay.
That she like visits him.
Okay.
Because she's not supposed to leave the castle.
Gotcha. Hi, Mommy. Any other things, Valen, that you could use, that are...
Hi, Mommy.
Hi,
buddy. I think it froze again. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Any other aspects about her character that you kind of want to capture, or that you kind of want to boil down into to, you know, to individual aspects.
I think she's stronger than she thinks she is.
That's a good one. Okay.
And I think her biggest strength is going to be like her empathy and the fact of she doesn't know how to save herself, but she can definitely save anyone else. So once she has someone else to fight for, that's when she's suddenly like, oh, I can get stuff done.
Good. Those would make some very interesting situations, you know, as you write this character. So what do you think about, you know, going through this and boiling it down? Does that help kind of solidify in your head, like, ways to write her as you're moving forward with your story?
Yeah.
And I know it got a little bit cut off there. Unfortunately, the sheet only has so much room.
Oh, that's okay. What? Yeah, you've been upstairs, and now's when you're gonna come.
Anything else you want to try to capture?
Sure. No, I guess not. I don't think he's gonna let me do anything else right now.
Why don't you grab a screenshot of that and then
Yep, I got it.
no, thanks for trying. He's cute. Anybody else want to take a shot at this? You know, I'm hoping as you're, you know, watching or listening to other people go through this, maybe not only is it helping, you know, maybe solidify some character ideas in your head, but you know, just maybe thinking about the process of fleshing out these individuals that you have percolating in the existence of your mind. We have about 15 minutes left. So anybody else want to give this a shot?
I don't know about a specific character, but I do have a general question.
Sure.
If that's all right. So I have an idea that's been on the back burner. I don't know kids. I feel like the setting is partially fleshed out, and I mean, there are minimal characters because of the setting, but I guess how fleshed out do you think the setting needs to be before you hop into characters?
That's a good question.
Or do you find that the two, you know, can develop side by side?
Yeah, and I know there's some other authors on here as well, because I recognize some of your names. So please feel free to chime in as well as we answer questions. So I can only tell you from my own experience. I don't necessarily, for me, have all aspects of the setting fleshed out as I go into it, but I really don't want to start writing about a specific setting until I have it straight in my head. So for example, if I know my characters are going to go to, I don't know, the warehouse to fight the mafia, but they're not there yet, I don't necessarily let that hold me back to starting writing the story because they're not at the warehouse yet. But before they get to the warehouse, I really do, at least for me, I do need to have a good idea of what that setting is like. You know, so it's a kind of, for me personally, my own process, it's kind of a both and, you know, I don't let it hold me back from writing, but I don't want to start writing that setting until I have it set in my head.
That makes sense.
Anybody else have any advice for that?
I think that writing, you know, as an art, we are all going to come to it from different parts, different parts of the writing. Some people start with the world, and that's where they start their ideas. Some people start with the characters. Some people start with the plot. And so what's going to work for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. But I think one of the things that can be helpful for people is have what you need to get started. Which is kind of what you said, Paul. Have what you need to get started. You don't need to have, you know, the religion and the language and the whole history of the world figured out before you start. But you should have a little bit of the basics. And then, you know, character and world development can and should feed off of each other. Your character is going to be influenced by the world that they're in. So if you know a lot about your character, you can look at that and extrapolate, okay, what kind of world would have developed this character? If you're starting with more world, you can look at the world and say, okay, what kind of character would grow up in this world?
I've got something I can contribute to that.
Sure.
So, full disclosure, haven't published anything. So my advice may be a little bit different. But here's the problem. If you focus on just world building, like if that is your ultimate goal, that's fine to a point. At some point, you have to start writing. And if there's things that you haven't figured out, you kind of have to, learn about that world as you explore it with your characters. Otherwise, you spend 15 years building a world and don't publish anything. I wouldn't know anything about that, though.
Oh, me neither. No. Yeah, I guess this case is just weird for me because I feel like I have more of a solid character concept than a world, whereas what I was working on before, it was the reverse.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's just kind of interesting to navigate the different, the difference.
But I think what SN said is really a great point. Is that if you have that great character design or developed in your head, like how does that character inform the world, and then that might actually help you with some of the world building, going forward. For sure, and it's tough. It's like it's kind of a balance, because I would hate to see anybody who really wants to start writing to kind of be held back until they feel that they've met a certain threshold of development before, okay, now I can officially start writing. But at the same time, I see you raising your hand there. But at the same time, it's that, you do got to have a little bit of your homework done before you sit down and start, getting words on paper. So yeah, but it's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else there have any other questions? I can't see everybody's face because I'm sharing screens, but please, if you have any other questions, or if you have a character you want to walk through this design process, let's go ahead and do that too.
I'm kind of operating on the assumption that any character that people are writing are going to be characters with fairly human characteristics, universal characteristics, differences in personality, differences perhaps in character. But basically, in order to be recognized and empathized with, they're going to be basically human characters. So it almost seems like you have to start with the character, and then however imaginative the world you build around them, you're still going to have a character that's going to respond in a human way to whatever this world is you build. So I don't know, it just seems like the world would be secondary to the character and the direction you're going to take the character in. Is that how you work, or do you not work that way? I'm asking.
No, that's a good question. For me, I personally, I do start with character, but that's influenced by the genre. So if I'm writing, like my Jason the Draconaut series was a contemporary fantasy. So that world was much different than what I'm looking at for sci-fi. And I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. But I think from what you're saying is, yeah, for me, I do start with the character. However, as an example, and I don't know his process, I'm a fan of Brandon Sanderson, and he is amazing at world building. And like the Stormlight Archives, incredible amounts of world building in that. And there's part of me that wonders, how much of that did he start with this world before he actually started writing characters in the world? So I can see coming at it from both sides. And it's like SN said, it depends on your personal style and how you approach the craft and the arts.
Well, I can see the advantage to the world building approach, especially if you're planning to do a series of books, and as you say, creating characters and then fitting them in. If you're writing one book about a certain character, I don't know, it almost seems like the world would be almost secondary. But just something to think about, I guess, just ponder.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Can I just throw one more thing at you, Paul?
Sure, of course.
So something, you mentioned Brandon Sanderson, big fan. A huge recommendation that I have for people, if you Google Brandon Sanderson, or if you go to YouTube specifically and you put in Brandon Sanderson lecture, he does course building, like college level, like BYU course level, like classes. And he usually streams most of them, or he has them recorded and puts them online. He did one a few years ago, and I actually think that he's putting one out, or did put one out for 2020, so it's a little bit more updated. For me, that wound up getting me a little bit, like, I don't know if the word motivated would be the right word, but it definitely gave me a little bit more direction on the aspect of world building, because he focuses on viewpoint, plot, world building, dialogue, everything. He even goes into short stories, and I would put that up there with On Writing by Stephen King as like essential information if you're writing to kind of digest and take in.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
And also, just to throw out this idea of aspects that I use for character creation, you can also use the same concept for your world building. What is this world I'm creating? Like, what is the society? I'm one of the story I'm working on now is it's a time travel sci-fi story. And a lot of times, especially with time travel, you have to be careful because there's so much out there, everything from Back to the Future to 12 Monkeys to The Fifth Element to there's a show on Netflix now called Dark, and it's all time travel and all different, theories behind what it is. And so I am very cautiously accepting the concept that if you're going to do a time travel story, you got to have some solid rules in place before you move forward. So I've actually come up with aspects for that component of this next series I'm working on. So one of my aspects is the past is like granite, but the future is like glass. So the past is a very difficult thing to change. However, the future is something that can easily be shattered just by one bad choice. And so that's going to inform my time travel going forward. So yes, you can use the idea of aspects to create your world building or just the genre that you're writing in. Okay, it looks like we have about 2 minutes left. Any other quick questions or comments before we have to wrap up?
I have a quick question. Well, I don't know if it's quick. Hopefully it's quick. When it comes to, so I have this other character and whole story. It's the most developed in my head I've ever had. I had multiple characters worked out, but I get stuck in my head with the, I guess, terminology because it is like a fantasy world, and I don't know how to get around that because like a lot of the terms I started so long ago, it's a very JV terminology, but the story is going more YA and up. So like I get really stuck when I go to write, and it's like, because like the people that she's from, they use storytelling for all these different like powers, so I always call them storytellers, and I was like, because I want to get kids excited to like tell stories and that they're magical, and it like it's this whole concept to me. But now I'm like, every time I write storytellers, I'm like, that sounds so cheesy, and I don't know how to get out of that to like actually finish the story.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough. So first of all, one of my pieces of advice is you said it's all in your head, right?
Yeah.
This is going to sound really very academic, but get it out of your head onto paper, because it's going to help you organize it, and at least for me, it helps free up my head for other things I'm working on too. Once I've got it on paper,
right?
And it's tough with the terminology because I would tell you, you know, and I don't know if others are going to agree with or disagree with me, but you know, go with what your instincts are telling you right now. If the word storyteller is the word you want to use, then use it. You know, because that's your first instinct. And maybe even before you start, you know, if you're going to publish or even self-publish, find some people that are going to read it for you and get their feedback. Feedback is a huge component of what we do. Because if they start telling you, I don't like that word, then maybe it's time to change it.
Okay.
Yeah. So find some people you trust to give you honest feedback to run those ideas by. But yeah, that would be my advice. I'm sorry, guys, we are at 12:45. So over on the Discord servers, there is a post-panel chat. So I'm going to go over to the writers chat. If anybody's any other questions or comments or discussion they want to so I'm going to go over there as soon as we're done. But thank you all for attending. I hope you use this tool to help you flesh out your characters as you start writing them. But thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the convention. Attend some panels, everybody. There's a lot of great people on panels. And I know I'm going to see at least one of you tomorrow on another panel. So yeah, we're going to be we're on a writing for middle grade youth YA audiences tomorrow. SN is going to be on that with me. It's going to be a great discussion. So enjoy the rest of the con. We'll see y'all.
Thank you.
Hey. Bye.